Earlier today, Israeli Defense Minister Katz threatened to permanently take over portions of the Gaza Strip if Hamas does not release the hostages, which is a pretty big thing to say, right? Permanently taking over portions of Gaza. I feel like that's been kind of, batted around on the edges for a little while, but it hasn't really been the mainstream conversation. But here we have it coming directly from the defense minister, maybe giving us an idea of what this next phase of the war might actually look like. Now, for anybody just catching up, the ceasefire is off. Israeli forces are back to operating in the Gaza Strip, conducting a series of airstrikes throughout Gaza, eliminating a wide range of Hamas leadership in recent days, and that continued earlier today. We'll get to that update here in a moment. Starting with this threat of permanently seizing territory. This is coming from reporting by Manny Fabian of the Times of Israel. I'll link all of Manny's information in the description below. He says Israeli Defense Minister Katz has instructed the IDF to seize additional areas of the Gaza Strip while issuing evacuation orders for Palestinian civilians in those areas. And we do have some of those evacuation orders that were made public, of course, earlier today. In a statement, Katz says, quote, "If the Hamas terror organization continues to refuse to release the hostages, I instructed the IDF to capture additional areas, evacuate the population, and expand the security zone around Gaza for the protection of Israeli communities and IDF soldiers through a permanent hold of the area by Israel." Again, this is something that we've kind of seen floated from time to time, Israel permanently taking over the Gaza Strip, annexing all of Gaza, if you will. It's not often we see it floated by senior officials like this. And in fact, the defense minister, the way he's putting it, is this plan is in motion, if you will. He says, quote, "As long as Hamas continues its refusal, it will lose more and more land that will be added to Israel." He added that Israel will intensify its military campaign against Hamas, including through the expansion of ground maneuver that we've already seen in Gaza until the hostages are released and Hamas is defeated. He added that Israel will use all military and civilian pressure, including evacuation of the Gazan population south and implementing U.S. President Trump's voluntary migration plan for Gaza residents. Haven't heard a lot from Trump related to Gaza since this ceasefire went away and Israeli forces continued operations. But this is, we're kind of getting an idea of what this next phase of the war might look like. A lot of senior Israeli officials have talked about how this time it's going to be different. They're not holding back. They're not going to go down to Rafah and stop for a period of time and let Hamas regroup. We'll see what this looks like, the shape this actually takes, but we're starting to get an idea based off the idea that Israel is going to be permanently taking some of the territory in Gaza, or at least making that threat, and other pieces here like the destruction of the Turkish hospital. So a second key point I wanted to hit on today. According to the IDF, earlier today, they said they carried out an airstrike on a group of Hamas operatives who are residing in this Turkish hospital, which they say the terror group had turned into a terror infrastructure. And that seems like some mixed information here. Now, this was an area that was previously used by the IDF along the Netzarim corridor as a base of operations. So Israeli forces used this to kind of base out of in previous months. They said while there, the IDF had uncovered that there was a Hamas tunnel network passing underneath the hospital, which, look, there's tunnels everywhere in Gaza, and I think we've learned that at this point. But according to the coordinator of government activities in the territories, they said, quote, "Another hospital can be added to this list. In recent months, Hamas terrorists exploited a site in northern Gaza, which previously served as the Turkish hospital and a command and control center, from which they directed and carry out terrorist attacks against IDF troops and Israel." He said the IDF operated in response to dismantle the terrorist infrastructure. Now, when I say kind of mixed messages here, we have footage of that hospital being destroyed. It doesn't look like an airstrike. It looks like it was rigged with explosives, like demolition charges, if you will. We've seen that plenty of times before as well. But just kind of mixed messaging, if you will. On the one hand, Israel saying it's an airstrike. Also, the volume of explosives being used here, if that was to carry out a group of Hamas operatives, that's, I don't want to say overkill, but like it's bordering on overkill. That's a lot of boom for a couple guys. So it does look like the intent here was actually the destruction of the building. And according to Israel, it was being used as a kind of Hamas command post with a tunnel network underneath. Now, it's not just Israel increasing the attacks against Hamas. We've actually seen Hamas increasing their attacks against Israel. Yesterday, they launched rockets into, or tried to launch rockets into Israel. Same thing today. It looked like at least a couple rockets. We've got some footage here released by Hamas. A couple rockets were launched from the northern portion of the Gaza Strip. Israel says, and I think we have footage of this as well, Israel says that both of those rockets were intercepted by Israeli air defense, which, just a quick note, kind of crazy that at this point Hamas still has rockets hidden somewhere that they're able to actually carry out these attacks. I mean, it shows you how much of the Gaza Strip has yet to be fully exploited and interrogated and cleared by Israeli forces. Now, in response to this, Israel says they struck a rocket launcher. We do have footage of this in the northern Gaza Strip, used to fire 2 projectiles earlier in the day. According to Israel, they say this launcher, we have a graphic here, was placed next to a humanitarian shelter in Gaza City. So I think the graphic here shows about 110 meters. That's pretty close to a humanitarian facility. They say, Israel says that in an effort to mitigate harm to civilians, they use precision munitions and aerial surveillance, similar to how we've heard in past strikes. Another major strike earlier today was Osama Tabash was killed, confirmed killed by Israel. He was viewed as the chief of Hamas's military intelligence in the southern Gaza Strip, and this was confirmed by both the IDF as well as Shin Bet. They say Tabash served as the head of Hamas's surveillance and targets unit, in addition to heading the southern Gaza intelligence unit. They added, quote, over the years, he was involved in terror activities and directing attacks, including a suicide bombing carried out in 2005, in which Shin Bet coordinator Oded Sharon was killed. They added that during this war, Tabash's unit was involved in gathering intelligence, monitoring the IDF activities in Gaza, and directing attacks on troops. Now, this is already a theme just in the first couple days since the ceasefire has elapsed. Israel clearly, while the fighting was not happening, was continuing to gather intelligence. We've already seen a significant number of Hamas leadership that's been eliminated. When you think about this, we saw kind of the entire upper echelon removed during the first phase of the fighting, which means that a lot of the people stepping into those roles were, deputies or further down that chain that had to step up into higher leadership positions. Right now, it's looking like Israel identified a lot of them, knew where they were operating, knew where they lived, knew where they went to work, if you will. And over the last couple of days has been removing quite a few of those new Hamas leaders from the battlefield. Now, shifting a little outside of Gaza for a minute, if you will, but very related to Gaza, the Houthis have claimed a couple more attacks against Israel, saying that they continue to attack Israel so long as the siege on Gaza is sustained, and they're going to keep doing this until Israel leaves the Gaza Strip and allows humanitarian aid in. So according to Israel, a ballistic missile was launched from Yemen that was successfully intercepted by Israeli air defense before it entered Israeli airspace, which in turn led to no reports of injuries or any damage from the attack. This is the 4th attack carried out by the Houthis against Israel since Tuesday. So we've really seen an uptick in those operations, which isn't really a big surprise. The Houthis talked about this. They gave a 72, 48, 24-hour warning saying, if you guys don't let more humanitarian aid in, and this is before Israel resumed military operations, which is just another another reason for the Houthis to begin firing again here. But they really laid out the groundwork saying, this is coming, get ready, it's coming, get ready. And then once that date passed, they began firing these missiles again. Now, this comes alongside an increase in U.S. strikes, which also today, the U.S. carried out like wave 6 or 7, I can't even keep track anymore, of strikes against the Houthis. And there's a little bit of tit for tat there. It does look like the Houthis have been firing drones and missiles at American ships in the Red Sea. Now, I'd probably expect those Houthi attacks to continue here for a while, just because the reason that they say they are doing it is due to what's happening in Gaza. And from everything we can tell from Israel right now, talking about Defense Minister Katz, they're going to continue this operation until all of the hostages are released and Hamas is defeated. That's probably not going to be a tomorrow or next week type thing. So I imagine we're kind of back to where we were like 5, 6, 7 months ago, where we're going to see attacks pretty regularly, not just in and out of the Gaza Strip, but also coming from the Yemen-based Houthis. But that's all I've got for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.